Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of the GitHub webinar. My name is Vinayak Hegde. I'm the CTO in Residence for Microsoft for Startups. And today's webinar is by Gandhali Samant, who is the Director, Developer, Ecosystem and Market Engagement. And she's going to talk on automating workflows with GitHub Actions. Sorry, a little bit about the topic. So GitHub Actions is a widely used workflow automation feature on GitHub with world-class CI/CD, which is a continuous integration and continuous deployment. In this introductory session, we will learn about how GitHub Actions can help you automate your repeated tasks in development and also set up a CI/CD system in place with the help of thousands of extensions. A little bit of information about Gandhali, who's a speaker. So Gandhali currently works at GitHub, leading developer ecosystem and market engagement charter. And she has spent over 20 years in IT. And she has also worked with several MNCs in India and abroad. Prior to GitHub, she spent 8 years at Microsoft with her last role being an engineering leader focused on strategic customers across Europe and Asia. A graduate in computer engineering from University of Mumbai, Gandhali holds a master's degree in computer science from the Florida Institute of Technology. With that introduction about the topic and the speaker, I'll hand it over to Gandhali. Just a small housekeeping announcement before hand it over is if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we'll be answering the questions in the chat while Gandhali goes through her presentations, and we will take the questions as the presentation goes on. So we'll probably break a couple of times for Q&A. Um, Somewhere at the 30-minute mark and also at towards the end of the session, right? So please keep all your questions coming, and looking forward to interacting with all of you. Over to you, Gandhali.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vinayak. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, all of you, depending on wherever you are in the world. Today, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is GitHub Actions. As Vinayak already said, GitHub Actions is a widely used and rapidly growing feature on GitHub. And yes, it is a world-class CI/CD tool, but at the same time it gives you so many more opportunities to just make your life and your team's life a lot more easier. So that's what we are going to talk about today. So before we actually start looking at what are GitHub Actions and how do you use them, let's look at why GitHub Actions, right? So if you can see the diagram that I have on my screen, you must have seen it somewhere before, maybe not in this shape and format, but in some other way. This is your standard software development lifecycle with all the different phases of software development in it. And what I want to first take, a minute to showcase that though all these CI/CD tools and platforms are generally associated with your build, test, release, deploy pipelines, there are a lot other things that you could do with them. For example, in your planning state, we have issues and project boards on GitHub, and there could be a lot of automation done there. I'll give you an example of one of our customers. They have a web app, and there is a feedback feature on the web app. And traditionally, you will collect this feedback in some kind of storage and database, and kind of sift through it and add it to your repos as a work item. What they did was that as soon as their users submit a feedback, it would directly trigger a GitHub action and create a issue in the developer work environment, so that you don't waste any time trying to do any manual processing of all the feedback that is coming up. That is just one example of how you can use automation even at a planning stage. When you look at your code stage, obviously you all are familiar with PRs or pull requests, right? You might want to close issues as soon as the PRs are approved. You might want to auto label your PRs depending on certain conditions, and all that could be automated using actions. Obviously, as you get to your build and test scenarios, there are a lot many things, right? You can compile, build, you can store artifact, automate your test suite, consume packages, as well as publish your releases, upload your artifact, all the way to deploying your application. So what I would like you to do today is, as we go through this presentation, think about at least one scenario in your everyday software development life cycles where automation using GitHub Actions could really help you. I think that would be a really good outcome of this session. So even as we get to the demo, I'm going to show you both the demos. I'm going to show you a demo for CI/CD, but I'm also going to show you a demo of automating something very simple in your life to kind of, make it easy. So this is, I wanted to talk about why GitHub Actions. Now let's go and dig deeper into what are GitHub Actions. So GitHub Actions are, if you want to define them, they are a way to automate, customize, and execute your software development workflows. They are stored as code, which makes it very easy to version them, to reuse them, and overall manage them. They also have many features which we will, look at as we proceed through our uh, session today, such as live logs, metric builds, built-in secret store, and options to use different kind of runners. So now, before we look at all these features, let's first look at the architecture of GitHub Action. A question for all of you, and Vinayak, Dhanashri, you can help me if people answer on the chat. What is the first basic minimum thing that you need to automate anything? I'm just going to wait for 10 seconds here because we don't have a lot of time. And if there are any answers, let me know, Dhanashri and Vinayak. I just want you to think, what is the first thing that you need to automate anything? Well, it's an event or a trigger or something that will basically kick off a chain reaction, right? And GitHub Actions actually can support many, many, many different events in such a way. Your event in this context actually kicks off what we call is a workflow. Now, what is a workflow? Workflow is nothing but a combination of one or more jobs that by default run in parallel. But if you want them to run sequentially, you can, we have features to make them work like that also. These jobs, in turn, consist of multiple steps. So a job can have one or more steps, and all the steps within a job will run sequentially. And these steps, in turn, have what we call an action component, which is actually a task that you will do, such as check out code or build the app or deploy the app or create issues. These are all tasks, and your actions could do that. You can also use, instead of action, you can use a shell command. If you want to do anything using shell command, you could do that as well. Now, where this all is being run, right? So the most important, I would say, component of your action is a runner. Runner is an execution engine or an execution environment for your action. It's nothing but a simple VM which continuously runs, listens for the next available job. And as soon as a job is available, it will pick it up and run it. Now, important thing to understand here is a runner takes a job in its entirety. So all the steps within a job will run on the same runner. The benefits, you can share the file system of the runner, you can pass the data between the steps, all that goodness comes in. Another important thing that runner does is logging all the results as your actions are going through and pushing those results to your GitHub repo. So as your actions run, you can actually see what's going on your GitHub repo in real time. So if you look at action, this is your entire architecture. You have events which kick off a workflow which consists of jobs, steps, actions, and then you have runner who actually run your tasks. Now let's go a little bit more deeper into it and see how this is all created from a code perspective. The first thing that you need to create an action is a YAML file. A workflow is nothing but a YAML file. You can name it anything, but the location is very specific. So if you go to your GitHub repo and if you click on the tab which says actions, and if you create your very first action for a repo, by default, a folder called .github/workflows will be created at the root level of your repo, and the YAML file will reside in that workflow folder always. Now, this is how your YAML file will look like when you put some steps and jobs into it. The first thing, as I said, is event. Obviously, you start with a name for your workflow, but the first thing you have to define is event, on what this workflow is going to be kicked off. The second, as we talked about, is jobs. You know, your job, here you can say it's a build job. The name is linked code, and it runs on a machine which is labeled at Ubuntu latest, which is a Linux machine. So this is what we call as your runner machines. The next, you have steps. As we said, every job consists of multiple steps, single or multiple steps, and within each step. So now you can see your first step is checkout code, and it uses an action called action slash checkout. That is your actual task, which will get executed on your runner. Another important thing that you can see here is secrets, and we will again look very closely at it. Secrets are a way to store anything that you want, which you don't want to put in your workflow YAML file, right? So, for example, you are using Azure and you are storing something on Azure Blob, and you have a connection string. Where do you put it? You put it on your GitHub repository settings. There is a place called secrets. You can add a secret there. You also can store the token. Say, for example, you want to deploy to a Azure web app. You need an authentication token to be able to deploy it, right? Even that could be stored in your secrets. And any secret could be actually accessed within your workflow using this, dollar sign, curly braces open, secrets dot the name of that secret. This is a standard way of accessing any secrets. Now let's look at the different types of events we have. So we have mainly three types of events. First is webhook events. So all your, whatever you want to do on your pull request or issue creations or issue modifications, if something gets pushed to your branch, all those are called webhook events. And we have a list of all the possible events. If you just go search for GitHub Actions events, you will find many different events that you could use to trigger your workflow. The second type is a scheduled event. So, for example, if you want to, have something, an action or a workflow that you want to run, say every Sunday evening at 9 p.m., you just need to write a cron sequence for that, and you put it here within this on, this parameter, and you will get that as a scheduled event. And then we have something called a manual event. Now, manual events are very useful when you are actually developing your actions or developing your workflows. Why? Because, say, if you want a workflow to run on every pull request, and when you are testing that workflow, if you just keep it on every pull request, you will have to go keep creating pull requests even to test that workflow, right? In that case, you can actually just have a manual event, something like a workflow dispatch event, where you can manually run those jobs. So these are like the three top types of events that we support. Next, let's look at runners. We have two different types of runners that we support again. One is a GitHub hosted runner, which is your standard runner, which you get along with your, GitHub action minutes. And another is your self-hosted runner. So GitHub hosted runner is again a very standard configuration. We have a two-core GPU, 7 GB RAM, 14 GB SSD, and Linux, Windows, and Mac OS are supported as operating system. We also have tons of softwares that get installed by default on these runners. But if you have any requirements, say you need a custom hardware configuration, or you need a machine which has GPU, or you have a custom OS, a choice of OS which is not offered by the GitHub hosted runners, you have a way to create your own runner, create your own custom labels for that runner, and then use those runners here as your execution environment. And the last part is obviously action, which is here in this screenshot. You can see action checkout or GitHub Superlinter. These are the actual actions. They run in two ways. They can either run in a Node.js runtime, or they can run in a Docker container. And again, we have different types of actions. So you can have an action which is in a public repository, which anybody can go and use. You can have an action which is only locally used. So It can be only used within the same repo as your workflow. And obviously, you can go and publish a Docker container image and use it as an action. And I'll show you this all live once we get to the demo part. So to recap the architecture, we have events which trigger the workflows and workflows which references the different actions and run it on runner. Now, there is a confusion that sometimes happens, and it has happened for me and some of my colleagues when we first started working on actions, that what is exactly an action? Is it this whole thing or is this one part? So when you look at how we are calling it, GitHub Actions is a feature which encompasses this whole workflow and all the features that come with it. Whereas when we say an action or a single specific action that your step calls out, that is this action which I showed you, like checkout is one action, or build your code is one action, right? So when you look, say GitHub Actions, it's a feature, and when you say a single action, it is a predefined action. Now you will find all these predefined actions on GitHub Marketplace. Are this the only way you can use it? No. You can actually write your own custom actions within your repo, keep it for your own use or publish them outside. And that is not what we are going to look at, in this session though. That is a different webinar where we can actually teach you how to write an action from scratch. In this webinar, I'm going to talk about the bigger part, the workflows, how the events happen, and how the actions get called to automate anything. Okay, some of the quick checks and information that will be useful for you once you start developing actions before we get into the demos. Context and environment variables. So GitHub context, they are a collection of variables to access information about workflow runs. So for example, say you have an issue, and as soon as the issue gets created, you are running an action to assign that issue to somebody. Now you want to see if that issue has a form, and a user has filled out some information in the form, and you want to access that information within your action. Say for example, who that issue needs to be assigned to. Those are the kind of variables you will get from context. So context uses the expression syntax, again very similar to secret, which is dollar curly braces context. And most of these context variables could be used at any point in the workflow. The other important thing is conditionals. So for example, you want to put a condition that run this job only if the push is happening on a main branch, right? So you can put a if here where you can say if GitHub ref is, refs heads main, that means it is a main branch, and you run it only if it is a main branch. You can also use some inbuilt functions, such as you want to, check the day of the week, or you want to do the status check, which is, whether your steps have failed or succeeded. That all could be used under conditionals. Storing secrets. Stores, as we talked about it a little bit earlier, you can have a lot of sensitive data. You could have passwords, you could have tokens, you could have certificates, and you might need to use them in your workflow. Now, all this can reside into a very secure secret store, and that could be accessed in a very secure way within your workflow. So you can actually create and share your workflows across team without hard coding any sensitive values in the YAML workflow. And again, they are available in context. They can be used to set environment variables, and all the secrets could be accessed using this same syntax that is shown here. Next thing I wanted to talk about is dependent jobs. If you remember at the very start of this session, I said all the jobs within a workflow can run or by default run parallelly. But if you want them to run sequentially, you can use this needs keyword. So for example, here, first job is setup. And when you do the second job, which is build, you say needs setup. In this case, it will run sequentially. It will wait for this job to finish and then only kick the next job. And same way, your test job needs to only happen after your build or job is done. So you are going to say needs build job, right? So this is how you can actually make them interdependent. And I think we have last thing to talk about is build metrics. Now, again, it's a very useful thing. You need to use the strategy keyword when you create a build matrix. So, for example, you are using a Node app and you want to test your Node app in different node versions, 6, 8, 10, 14, whatever the node versions. You want to make sure that it is compatible with all the versions, right? So this matrix can actually, you don't have to write three different workflows where you will give the node version, different node version for each workflow. You can just give it as a matrix and it will run with all of them and give you test results with all of them. So with that, I think Vinay, can you give me a time check? Are we good on time? I'm almost at the demo part. So,
Yeah, we have, we are at the 24-minute mark. So I think, yeah, we have enough time. Yeah.
okay. So I think next half an hour we can spend on demos, and then we will, we'll take some questions. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to show you is where all these actions, which are pre-created actions, are located. Okay. I'm gonna just stop sharing my PPT and go here in my browser. So this is github.com marketplace is a place that you can go and you will see all the possible. There are thousands of actions which are pre-built here. I'm just going to search for, say, Azure. Okay? And I can see all the actions which are related to Azure, but I will also see all these actions which are by verified. So creator is verified by GitHub, means that we have verified this have come from Microsoft Azure team, right? So when you see this little check mark here, that means this is verified created by GitHub. And here you can see all the possible actions that you can do. Now, if you click on one of these, uh, I'm just want to show you what all it shows you all the documentation, how to use this, how to use this in the workflow. I think the most important thing is it actually gives you a sample workflow where you can actually, copy paste this and try the first time you want to use this action. And also it gives you the link to its GitHub repo. So if you go here, this is the repo where, remember, I was telling you that you can create your own custom action. This is what is the creation of an action or of a, a task. Every action will have a action.yaml file. And here, if you can see, there are a lot of things, but again, this is where your action gets created and it runs using Node 11. So this is a Node runner application. Remember, I told you there are two ways to run an application, either in a Node environment or in a Docker image container. So this is a Node application, which you can see that it is using this lib/main.js. And if you, again, if when you have time, go there, and if you get into lib.main.js, I can just quickly go there and it will show you exactly what this action is doing. Now, imagine trying to do all this from scratch. You will have to write all this code, right? But all you have to write is just call this action in your workflow, and your web apps deploy is all done. So that is actually the power of all these pre-created action, that it saves you a lot of time, writing all this code to deploy to Azure, verifying the authentication, creating the slots, everything taken care by your marketplace actions. Okay. So with that, this is what I wanted to show you for marketplace. Now we are going to switch on to some actual demos, right? So the first demo I want to show here for all of you is a demo for a very simple workflow that we have. Okay. What we call it is a weekly update. Okay. Now the scenario here is, say you have a team, a big team, and every Friday you are supposed to give a update about your week, like what did you do in this week, what were the accomplishments, what were the blockers, what is your plan for the next week, and there is a person assigned in your team to collect all this from all of you and maybe create a report or send it to a leadership, do something with it. Now, being humans, half of us will miss the deadlines. We will get busy with something else. We will get delayed. And inadvertently, that person who is supposed to collect all this have to keep following up with us. Guys, have you done this? Guys, have you done this? So I have a colleague named Karan who actually went and made our life very easy with this a simple workflow. So I'm going to show you how we did that. Before that, I'm going to quickly create a new repo here. Workflow demo. Uh, you can actually, I'm going to keep it public. So in case you want to go and look at the code later, you can do that. It's on my GitHub account gsaman, and I'm going to create the repo. Okay. Now, if I want to create my first action on this repo, here is the action tab that I was talking about. If you go here, you will see suggested for this repository a simple workflow, which is basically just a template. But there are a lot of other template, like if you want to deploy Node.js to Azure, deploy to Amazon ECS, deploy to IBM Cloud, and you could use one of these templates to make your life easier if you don't want to write everything from scratch. But since we are not doing any of that, I'm just going to use this. Now, if you look here, I'm just going to change this name from blank to main. If you look here, it is still giving you a complete template with everything that I showed you, right? Name, on, uh, jobs, build, runs on, your runner, your steps, everything. So it is very easy to write a workflow using this. Now, me, I get I make a lot of spelling mistakes when I try to type live within a demo. So I have a cheat sheet where I'm actually going to just copy the workflow that I have created and paste it here. But we'll walk through it. So if you look at this workflow, it's a weekly team update, and I wanted to create it on a schedule, so I created a cron sequence for this. But in this demo session, I can't use the schedule, right? So I used a manual trigger, which is a workflow dispatch, and I'll show you how this is useful. If you look at the job, it says create issue job, it says create weekly team update issue, runs on Ubuntu. It has a name and it uses this specific action which is created by this user. So if I quickly go over it, you can see it here, github.com. I'm John Bo, issue bot, and it will tell you everything about how to use this action. So going back to our file, it also has some agenda. It also has the labels. Couple of interesting thing. It says pinned is true. So if you know what are pinned issues, they are the issues which are pinned at the top of your issues tab. So every time what I want is I'm creating this weekly update issue, I want it to be pinned so that people have it pinned on their, in front of their eyes. I also want to close the previous one with the same label. So all these are the parameters that are being used by this action. So I'm going to start committing. So when I commit it, if I go here, now I will see that I have a weekly team update workflow here, but it hasn't run. Why? Because the only trigger I gave is a manual trigger. I have not give a push or pull trigger here. It shows you this workflow has a workflow underscore dispatch event trigger, which means you will get this button and you can manually now go and run this workflow. So while this workflow is running, what you can actually go do is go and come here. And if you click here, you will see the status that it is queued. It was manually triggered by gsaman, that's me. And if you go here, remember I told you will see everything in real time, all the visualized logs, everything is here. One thing is, since we are doing this is as a first issue on your repo, it is telling you finding previous issue with the label XYZ, but couldn't find because it's the first one, right? And it will complete the job. Now, if I go back to my repo and if I go to the issues, you will see this is my pinned issue and this is my open issue, which is weekly update. Now, since I told you that it will close the previous issue, what I'm also going to do is I'm going to go and run this action one more time, just to make sure that, we are checking everything that we have done here. So now if I go back, I have another run that you can see here, and it is in progress. If while this is happening, if I go to my notifications, right, it will show me the notification that came on the very first weekly update issue. Now the second issue is also created. Now if I go back here, I'll still see one here. Why? Because the second issue, number 2, is now open, and the first issue was closed by the bot. So this was the very first demo I had, where I wanted to show you something which is not related to code, something which is our everyday life action, and how GitHub Actions could actually help you automate those. Any questions so far before I get into the Azure demo?
We are good, Gandhali. We are at 10:35 now.
Okay, cool. So the next demo is going to be a little bit more, I would say, elaborate, right? What we are going to do here is we are going to create a Node.js app. I would say just a scaffolding. We will deploy it locally. We'll see if it is running. Then we will push it to a GitHub repo, and we will use action to deploy it to a Azure web app. Okay. So first thing we will do is we will create an app. So I'm going to use Express framework, uh, my Node demo for MFS, and I'm going to use Vue UG, and my my Node application is created. So I'm going to do CD. Okay. Instead of Node, I said Nido. See, that's a proof that I don't type well, but that's fine. I'm just gonna use it. No, yes. And now I need to do obviously the npm install. Sorry. And to start this web app, I'm going to do npm start. So this will go and start my app at the the local host 3000, which is the default port. Let me just try it once. I think it's already showing. Okay. Okay. So welcome to Express. That's all I did. Now, next thing I need to, create a repo and push my application to the repo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new repository here on GitHub. I'm going to name it JS Node JS demo, so that again, any of you want to go and see, I'll make it public for now, and I'll create this repo. And since I want to push to this repo, I'm going to copy this address. Now I'll come back to my terminal. I'm gonna stop this application from running, and I'm going to initiate Git, as I'm sure all of you know how to do this. Git init, branch main. So initialize an empty Git. Now I'm going to stage all my files. So git add, everything will get added. Then I'm going to commit my file. So git commit. I'm going to add a message. That's done too. Okay, so everything is committed and I'm good. Now what I need to do is I need to give the remote URL for my Git repo. So git remote add origin. I'm going to just paste this URL here. Okay, so I'm just going to do git remote to make sure that it is pointing to the correct location. Yes, gsnode dot git. So it is pointing to the correct location. Now, what I need to do is git push origin me. Now this will basically push all my files, my changes to my repository. So if I now go in the code, you will see everything. Now, next thing is obviously the interesting one that we will create an action. So I'm again going to do a setup workflow yourself. And again, since this is a much longer script, I'm going to again, copy it, see, and paste it here. Okay, so let's go through this, what all it has. So here you will see I have three triggers. I have push. So anything, any push that happens on main branch, I want this action to trigger. Any pull request that comes on main branch, I want this action to trigger. And I also wanted to have a workflow dispatch because I'm still doing testing. So I'm going to keep a manual trigger as well. You will see some environment variable here. So we have Azure Web App, which I have already created. I can quickly show it to you here. Okay, let me refresh this. I hope it doesn't ask me to sign in again. No, it's not. Okay, so this is the Azure Web App Service Action Test Node.js, which I have already created. So let's go back here. We have a package path, which is dot. So basically, it's just going to create the package store in the same place and deploy it from there. And this is my node version. Now, if you look at my jobs, my first is build and deploy job. Now, in a real life, you will never have a build and deploy job in the same workflow, right? Your build processes are different. Your deploy processes are different. Your build process probably will, kick off a build uh, as soon as there is a PR to make sure that nothing gets broken on your existing code. It might have some test suites that they want to run once your code is built. You might be doing some code scanning or secret scanning. All that will come into your build flows. Whereas when you look at deploy, it will be managing your packages, deploying the correct package to a specific environment, all that. So in real life, you will not have CI and CD pipelines part of the same workflow. The only reason I'm doing it here is because this is a demo and I just quickly wanted to show how you can do it just using a few steps. So here, the next step we have is setup node. We have obviously the npm install, build, and test if there are any test suite presence. And this is our deploy to Azure Web App action where it takes some parameters. So obviously it takes the parameter, which is your Azure Web App name. It takes a secret, which is authentication token, and it takes the package that has been created in this build step. Okay. Now I'm going to do the commit. Now what's going to happen is this commit is directly happening on main branch. So it's anyways going to kick a run for this workflow. So if I go here, you will see that it's already queued. It didn't wait for me to go and do anything manually. So this takes a little bit of time because there are a lot of things that happen here. But yeah, we are already at the npm install build, and this is deployed to Azure. So quickly, what do you guys think? Okay, it's already failed. I wanted to ask, so anybody has any idea why it failed? Dhanushi, you can see if there are anything on the chat. I'll go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Kanali.
Okay, so this failed because of a very simple reason. And it is written here, no credential found, add an Azure login action. So you can either add an Azure login action or you can give credentials using secret, right? So if you look at here within my workflow, I had told this workflow that I'm going to give you a publish profile within my secrets, right? But I never went and put my secret there. So here is how you go and create your secrets. We have a place called secrets here. There are multiple secrets for actions, code spaces, depend about. So we are going to select action and we are going to do new repository secret. And as many of you who are using Azure, this is how you can go and get the publish profile. So I'm gonna do C, C back here. This is the secret name that I have given in my workflow, and I'm going to add secret. Okay. Now, if I go back to my action, and this time I will use the manual workflow run. I'm going to run it. And if I go back here, I'll see the second run kicked off. Sorry. Now, this will actually work. I know it will work because earlier I had intentionally made it fail just to show you how secrets are important. But this will take a couple of minutes. I already have the. Let me open the Azure Web Apps. It will also take some time. But if you remember, this was our Express. Welcome to Express. So we should see the same thing after the deployment is done. Okay. So while this is deploying, why don't we go ahead and get ready to create a pull request? We will not do a pull request. We'll just get ready to do it while this deployment happens. Because I wanted to show you how to do a pull request triggered workflow as well. So I'll go back to my terminal, and what I will do is I will use everybody's favorite IDE, which is Visual Studio Code, and I'm gonna open it. Now this is my Node app. So if you see here, this is my my index view. It says welcome to title, and if I go here, it says title, and the value of this title variable is express. So I'm going to say, instead of express, I will do GitHub Actions demo, and I'm gonna save this. Okay. So as soon as I save, I will get it here. Now, all these things that we did locally, right? Staging the files, committing the files, all that you can do obviously through Visual Studio Code as well. So this is my staging action where I'm staging my change in index.js. This is my commit. So I'm going to say changed title, and I'm going to commit this. Okay. Now, while this is happening, let's go back and see what's happening with our build and deploy. Is Azure trying to help me or not? Probably it's taking a lot of time. Okay, let it go through. We will not create the PR. We will just get everything ready. So I'll go back to my code. And now what I will do is I will push this change to my origin branch. This is pushed. Okay. Generally, it doesn't take this long, but something is going wrong. Yeah, at least one of the demos always have to go wrong, right? So okay, cool. Finally. So it deployed. And if I go back here, took a long time, but it will work. And it will say Express, welcome to Express. So now our app is deployed to the Azure web app. As you can see here, action test node.js.azurewebsites.net. If I go back here, I don't know why it took so long. Generally, it happens in a few seconds, but it will show you, what this action did. It took all these parameters. It actually started the package deployment using zip deploy. You can see the deployment logs. As you remember, we can see all the deployment logs on Azure website. So it is giving you the kind of the link to this is the link on the log side on the Azure web app. So you can actually go and see all the deployment related logs also there. If you go back here, you will see all this that happened when in the npm install build test phase. So this is how it worked. Now I'm going to try one more time. I don't know why it didn't work. Code changes. Okay. Now if I go here, oh, you know why? Because I directly merged the branch. I had to create a branch. I forgot. See, that's why I couldn't create a pull request. So the first thing I had to do is create a new branch. This is, I'm just going to name it. And this is the standard practice. You should never do changes on the main branch, right? So now I'm going to go back to my code and make this change here. GitHub Actions demo 2, and I will, save this, Command S, and this is my changed title. I'm committing this changed, yes, and I'm going to push to origin. Now, if you see, I got a message here that you can compare and create a pull request. Now, in a real world, again, you will have a lot of description here. And when you create a pull request, you will see required reviewers and all that. But here, I'm just going to go ahead and do create a pull request. And something fun will happen here. So as soon as you create a pull request, it will show some checks haven't completed here, because this is a check that needs to be done when you create a pull request. So imagine when you are, even on your dev branch, when you are, kind of making different changes and people are committing, this will be a very useful step if you just do a build workflow to make sure that whatever changes your team has been making is not breaking your current flow. So again, I don't know how long it's gonna take this time, but we'll go here and just see if it has kicked off the action. Yeah, it says change title, and we will wait for it to run through. We are at 10:50. So if there are any questions, you guys can unmute and ask your questions. Else, uh, this is basically what I had to show.
We don't have any questions right now, Gandhali. But yeah, it was pretty interesting, and the demo also made it like very tangible, and still running the demo.
Yeah, I think the demo is run, and now you can see that we have changed it, and now the changes here. So that finishes the demo. What I'm going to do is probably have a couple of more slides just to give some helpful links. So we did the demo. Uh, this is where if you have if you want to migrate to GitHub Actions from say Circle CI or Azure Pipelines or Jenkins, this is where you can go help.github.com -en/action, where you can get a lot of documentation for migrating to GitHub Actions. If you want to do some training, we have lab.github.com, where you can find really good labs, which will basically they will guide you through step by step, leveraging GitHub Actions. And all these you get action minutes on depending on, which SKU you are using. But if you have public repositories, if you have any code that is open sourced in a public repository, actions are completely free for public repositories. So the minutes get used only on private repositories. And this is where you can go try actions today. So thank you so much. I think I'm done, Vinayak.
Thanks, Gandhali. Thanks for the presentation, and I think I also learned a bunch of new things regarding runners and GitHub Actions as well. I've used this in the past. So thank you very much, and we will we'll see you all in the next edition. We also have another edition coming up later in the day. That is India time, which is more friendly to the US and EU time zone. So we'll see you there as well. Thanks, Gandhali.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tanushree. Bye.